Our vision is about nation building, developing steel industry, and providing what the country needs and substituting those imported steel. Because we know every developing country needs a lot of steel for infrastructure, for industries. We actually adopted green steel technologies because we are really just harnessing what our Philippines is endowed with, rather than trying to go green against economic sense.
Thought-provoking conversations with the people shaping our country. We uncover stories behind the headlines with influential voices from the Philippines and beyond. This is Manila Bulletin's The Sit Down.
Welcome to The Sit Down. This is another episode in our sustainability series, and today we're talking to somebody from SteelAsia. No? SteelAsia has been producing world-class steel products since 1965, and their supplies basically answer to more than 80% of the steel rebar requirements for land, air, sea, power, and communications infrastructure. So as you can see, it's a very vital player in our industrial backbone. And we're here today with Mr. Pek Hoong Chong. He's the EVP and co-COO of SteelAsia. And we're here to better understand the green steel technology that they're fostering and why that future of our national development depends a lot on its adoption. No? SteelAsia has been linked to its green steel push to a broader effort to strengthen the country's industrial backbone, no? Especially as the Philippines continues to import around 80% of its steel requirements. Is that correct, Mr.
That's right.
Mr. Pek? Okay.
That's right.
From your perspective, how does investing in green steel production simultaneously advance environmental targets and support the strategic goal of localizing supply for infrastructure, for energy, and for manufacturing?
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this interview. First of all, I'd like to say that the Philippines doesn't really have a steel industry. It really just have a rebar manufacturing industry, and all the other steel needs of the country is imported. Yeah. So to actually develop the economy through, building infrastructure, building manufacturing, which are all very essential to develop the economy, we really need our own steel manufacturing in the country to support this. Otherwise, again, most of the steel we need will have to be imported, and it is no longer going to be able to support what we are trying to achieve as a country. So the Philippines, why we feel that going into green steel makes more sense for the country. The Philippines is not endowed with iron ore, coal, natural gas. Yes, we have a little of each of these critical ingredients for the traditional steelmaking, but we really don't have that much. But what the Philippines actually has is, with over 100 million people, we generate a lot of steel scrap. And
Steel scrap.
That's right. And being on the Pacific Ring of Fire, we actually have a lot of renewable energy potential. You can see there more than 80% of new power projects in the country are actually renewables. They can be solar, wind, hydro, geothermal. Yeah, so many of these are happening in the country. So when we can combine scrap recycling in an electric arc furnace together with renewable energy, this is actually one of the proven pathway of making green steel. So making green steel by itself isn't really the ultimate objective. It is really to help the country industrialize and build world-class infrastructure, and in the process, we utilize what the Philippines has. And hence, green steel becomes the natural choice.
And when I mentioned the historical background of SteelAsia as having operated since 1965, you now have 4 plants?
That's right.
Operational.
Operational.
No? So that would be Mecawayan, Compostela,
Yes.
one in Davao, and in Calaca, Batangas.
That's right.
And then upcoming now are 3. You have 3 already. Can you elaborate on the 3 and what they'll be doing and why they're part of the green steel technology picture?
Yes. We actually have 4 green steel projects, but with that, it's 3 new greenfield plants. One of them is actually a backward integration at our Davao works, whereby we attach an electric arc furnace to melt scrap in Davao works, because today we have a Davao rolling mill which is importing semi-finished steel from overseas, and these are mainly, let's say, high GHG or greenhouse gas emission steel. But when we make them in the Philippines, we can make them from scrap and renewable energy and making them green. Now, the 3 new projects we have in Luzon, all of them, they are in Lemery, Batangas, Candelaria, Quezon, as well as Concepcion, Tarlac. So all 3 are making new products that the country is not producing today. So they are actually substituting imports, helping the country become more self-sufficient, and that will make us produce a total of 3.5 million tons of green steel by around 2029. So these new products includes steel beams, steel sheet piles, steel plates, steel wire rods. So these are what the country also currently is importing, again, for its manufacturing and construction. But in the future, we no longer need to import them, because we'll make them locally with our own materials, and we'll be able to help the country also reduce a lot of foreign exchange
Presently,
outflow.
do you also export any of your steel products with
We
SteelAsia?
export a little.
Okay.
Yeah, our main focus is really to fulfill what the country needs in the construction activities, primarily today. Let's say last year was our highest year for annual exports, and even then, it's not more than 5% of our total sales.
And when you say local requirements, just so that people will understand it
Yes.
better, no, we're not just talking about real estate developments. We're not just talking about buildings. No, we're talking about infrastructure.
That's right. Yeah.
so
So we're talking about bridges, railroads, ports, airports. Yeah. So all this infrastructure, schools, hospitals. Yeah. So we can say that our steel touched the lives of, 80% of Filipinos, because they are into all this infrastructure that all Filipinos are currently using on a day-to-day basis without realizing that the steel inside are all made in the country.
Like you were saying, SteelAsia is basically right now almost 100% devoted to rebar production. But
Yes.
A lot of these things that you mentioned, all the bridges, the hospitals, everything, they require other steel products as well beyond rebar. And that's what we have to import right now.
Yes, actually, most construction projects will use a combination of steel rebar plus other steel products. Our next project for new product in Lemery, Batangas will be commissioning by the middle of 2026. So, towards the second half of this year, these products will go out to the market. These are the steel beams, and this will be the first plant in the Philippines.
Okay. As you expand into these product lines that the country traditionally now imports, no,
Yeah.
and particularly I would mention structural steel, no, for
Yes.
large scale developments.
That's right.
How do you expect this diversification to influence the competitiveness and resilience of Philippine construction and infrastructure in the years ahead?
Okay, I think with our own steel, a good example will be in the current crisis when we have war in the Middle East. You can see the foreign exchange become unstable and can go up very significantly in a short time. We talk about fuel shortages around the world and hampering actually shipping and logistics. If we have our own steel made in the country, we actually, let's say all the costs in the Philippines are in pesos, and distances to bring these steel materials to the customers are all, within short distances. We don't need ocean-going ships. Yeah, and we will be able to ensure a more stable pricing for the customers, and customers will also get to enjoy all the steel requirements, being fulfilled in a short time. They don't have to wait.
I'm simplifying it, no, but like with what you're doing, basically there will be a more pronounced era of self-sufficiency, insofar as steel production is concerned, because you're also diversifying to other products. At the most, maybe logistical costs, because that's still controlled by fuel and oil prices, may still be a little factor that's added on.
Yeah. But it's really all local transportation.
Okay, so that's
we're
really
talking about maybe less than 10%
Okay.
impact.
And historically, I mean, I'm sure there's some people thinking they remember that there were like these big steel companies in the 1970s and 1980s, and like somehow they've kind of like fallen by the wayside, or they no longer exist. No, what allowed SteelAsia to continue persisting and keeping its head above water since the 1965?
Okay. Yeah, I think you must be referring to National Steel of Iligan and maybe other steel companies that also, let's say, have stopped their steel businesses. I would say SteelAsia is really devoted to nation building. Yeah. We were the first to install modern steel mill technology back in the 90s. Yeah. Before that, all the other steel plants in the country were all really old. Many were second-hand, but we installed the first modern steel plant from Europe, and it was a brand new plant. Technology has always been something that we hold dear, even up to today. You will notice that all our steel plant technologies, the core technologies, come from Europe. Germany, Italy, France, these are the typical countries where we get our steel plant technologies from. The other thing that also differentiate us from the field of competitors, we believe in serving the customers and serving them well. We are the first steel plant to actually set up, countrywide. You will hear from Philip earlier that we have plants in Luzon, in Visayas, and Mindanao. No other steel company is doing that. Typically, steel companies in the Philippines tend to produce in one place and try to distribute them nationwide. So the way that we have done is different, because we wanted to be close to the customers. We wanted to help the customers reduce logistics costs when they procure steel, and this actually helped us endear us to the customers, because they can get their steel faster and cheaper, because the steel is available locally and they don't all have to wait for the steel to be delivered, typically from Luzon.
Okay, so that's like a big picture perspective of why SteelAsia still has such a prominent role to play in terms of national development. And I guess it also gives us an idea of the industry itself. No? Now let's move to decarbonization and the net zero transition that you're talking about. No? Because we've always talked about SteelAsia, and now the drive is to really be 100% recycled, that's the scrap metal, and 100% renewable energy, depending on where you're located. No? I mean, it can be hydro, it can be geothermal, it can be wind. No? As you go on this decarbonization roadmap and project significant emission reductions from your new facilities, what milestones should the industry and the public watch for over like the next decade as SteelAsia moves along this pathway towards green steel?
Okay, so first of all, the green steel journey is global, so it's not just the Philippines. But in the Philippines, SteelAsia is definitely leading it, because we already have one steel plant in Kalaka Works, which has been assessed by DNV of Norway with greenhouse gas emission that's lowest in the world, that is nearly 90% lower than traditional steel making. With the same model, we are applying this technology to Lemery, to Candelaria, to Davao, and to Concepcion projects. So all these steel plants will also be lowest greenhouse gas emission steels in the world. And not only are we going to have our rebars in the future, it will be structural steel, it will be steel plates, sheet piles, and wire rods. So with such green steel, we are also creating thousands of jobs for the Filipinos. As you notice, our plants are not near the Metro Manila area. We are distributed in the countryside. So for almost all these places that we are setting up new plants, we are actually among the largest, if not the largest, employer in the region. So the jobs that we are creating in the next few years will be around 15 to 20,000, both direct and indirect jobs. For direct jobs alone, it's about 3,000, but steel has a very strong multiplier effect. So not only are Filipinos going to get world-class steel, which is among the greenest in the world, but we are also talking about thousands of new jobs, technical, high-quality jobs being created in the provinces, and therefore bringing prosperity and sharing it to the Filipinos countrywide.
Okay. When you say greenest in the world, I just want people to understand better what that means, no? Because that's not the steel product itself. It's about the process by which you created the steel product.
Yes.
That would be
right.
fair to say?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. And so can we go a little bit into detail in that without sort of making it sound too scientific or too complicated, no?
Yeah.
What sort of technology is actually embedded in that to make that sort of qualify as green steel?
Okay, so maybe I'll start with what traditional steelmaking is like. As traditional steelmaking uses iron ore and coal, and this generates a lot of CO2, and other greenhouse gases. We're talking about 10 times more greenhouse gases compared to green steel. Today, globally, there are two proven methods to make green steel, which is essentially, as Philip said correctly, the process. And it will be different raw materials, it will be different process, but how it is actually measured is actually how much greenhouse gases are emitted during the process. So in the Philippines, as I explained earlier, scrap in electric arc furnace with renewable energy is the most natural process, because today we have an abundance of both. But in other countries, another proven process is actually using iron ore and green hydrogen. So this is something that is more recently developed. In fact, it has, let's say the first commercial plants are being built in Europe. It is known to be actually a very costly process. So we hope to also see technologies continuously being developed to reduce the cost. Because at the end of the day, I think the scrap electric arc furnace process that we use have been competitive so far. But we do hope to continuously see improvements in technologies.
When you say the European technology would be more expensive, that's because of the hydrogen aspect?
Just because of the hydrogen aspect.
Okay.
That is correct.
Unlike us, we're using basically what's already there in nature.
That's right.
The geothermal,
That's right.
the wind, or the solar.
You're right.
Okay. That's great. And besides, you were mentioning a country that had already certified our green steel. That's Sweden, or what
no, it's actually DNV. DNV
Okay.
is an international assessment company headquartered in Norway.
Okay,
So
headquartered in
DNV company, let's say, assessed our plant
Okay.
and found that we really generate, very low, very very low greenhouse gases. And,
and I
lowest in the
understand
world.
it was not only from Norway, but you also got something from the Moody's Investor Service.
You're right.
Okay.
So, so what DNV did was to certify our existing plant, which has been operating since 2008. So we are not making green steel just recently. Since 2008, we have been making green steel. But let's just say that the customers were not so aware of this, and it's also not so important at that time. But today, with countries around the world trying to take actions against climate change, it's become important. What Moody's has actually done for SteelAsia is to look at our expansion. Our expansion in Lemery, Candelaria, Davao, and Conception. And they study the technology that we are going to use, and they look at the impact to sustainability, essentially environment and social impacts. And they find that we are actually, the highest rated company in the world in the steel industry. So we are talking about SteelAsia flying the Philippine flag in the world. And we are also the highest rated in sustainability for all industries in the Philippines. So this has actually been a great recognition for the company.
And this is the very good Moody rating or something?
That's right. That's a very good rating from Moody's.
Okay.
And it's attracted a lot of positive attention for us also. Especially among the financial institutions. Yeah, both local ones as well as international
Because
ones.
I presume you're not a publicly listed company. No,
No, we
SteelAsia is not.
are a private company.
You're a private company. So like a lot of these things like the certification and the awardings can help a long way in terms of helping you guys arrange for the right financing to be able to expand and
Yes.
properly upscale, no?
Correct,
The-
correct.
The speed with which you
Yes.
can make these new projects come to
Yeah,
to
Moody's
play.
is an international rating company. So what it really helps is help to bridge the communication between industrial companies like us and financial institutions who are, not let's say they're not so familiar with the steel industry. But what Moody's help us is to bridge that, as well as to check alignment against sustainability standards and international taxonomies.
Because does green financing exist here in the Philippines already to a large extent, or is it still very marginal?
It has actually exploded in recent years, I would say. Yeah, it's not a very old concept. I think it's only in the last 2 years or 3 years that it's suddenly become very big. And the central bank, BSP, is actually also very keen to push sustainable financing in the country.
You were talking about the Calaca plant, no, in
Yep.
Batangas, as something that you found that that's like one of the paragons or examples of how green steel technology can be created, no?
That's right.
Without sort of like going into detail in the technology, can we sort of like go a little bit more in terms of how this can now be replicated in the other plants, or is it something that's difficult technology-wise to understand?
Okay, so really, the technology it involves melting steel scrap in what is called an electric arc furnace. So this is a specialized technology for steel making, and then we're talking about refining the steel to get the final quality needed, because steel quality for construction, for industrial, let's say for shipbuilding, yeah, they're all slightly different. Yeah, but this all can be made in the same scrap recycling process. Yeah, and I think because it is very energy intensive, so if we are using regular energy from non-renewable plants, the CO2 emission can also be quite high. So hence, we should couple that with renewable energy. That's how we can make green steel in the country. And the Philippines is actually blessed with a lot of renewable energy potential that we can continue to harness. And indirectly, this actually helps the country because we don't have to depend on imported oil and gas, which can run into challenging situations like right now with the crisis in the Middle East.
When people talk about green technology, and whether it's green steel, whether it's even talking about like food and other essentials, that are sort of like put within that whole arena of what is green, it's often presumed that it's going to be more expensive. That it's going to cost more. What changes have you observed in terms of like production expenses for this particular green steel, and how do you ensure that as we move towards these green processes, we're not going to be just pricing ourselves out of the market and the quality of the steel will still be maintained?
Okay. Yes, I think the marketing people have made all the green products let's say more expensively priced to the consumers, and hence this connotation. And actually, I'd like to share with you that in the Philippines, SteelAsia has been making green steel since 2008. Yeah, up to today, there is no price distinction between green steel and non-green steel. What we would like to say is, we can be competitive making green steel in the Philippines, but again, the price of let's say renewable energy is different in every country. Let's say the availability of scrap is also different in every country. So we cannot generalize this across the world. But what we can assure consumers in the Philippines is that here we have our own resources in the country, the availability of scrap and the availability of renewable energy, and we can make businesses viable when producing green steel, and hence this also gets passed on to the consumer through the pricing.
In the case of the one in Batangas, in Calaca,
Yes.
you were talking hydroelectric, right?
No, Batangas, our Calaca Batangas plant is actually powered by geothermal energy.
Geothermal.
But our new Lemery Batangas plant will be powered by hydroelectric.
Okay, and that is something that you set up yourselves, or it's a contractor that you then enter into a deal with to
we
get
are
power?
we actually entered into a power purchase agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, with the company that's supplying only renewable energy to us.
Okay. And this decision of SteelAsia to move to this green steel and really expand it and try to own it in a way, no? Is it part of a bigger picture, part of something that you really want to do in terms of national development and just doing the right thing? Or because for some steel companies, obviously at some point it would have been a paradigm shift. But to change to this kind of technology, it would have been expensive. I would have to dismantle all the things that I'd been using in the past. And for some companies, it would have been just stick to what's been working so far and not do the shift.
Yeah.
And so why SteelAsia why was SteelAsia really looking at this as a visionary thing?
Okay, first of all, I also like to highlight that in the Philippines, there is no traditional steelmaking plant, or also called the blast furnace, which processes iron ore and coal to make steel. So we are starting on a clean slate, except, we actually have electric arc furnaces already using scrap and renewable energy. For SteelAsia, the choice of technology to make green steel is actually quite natural because we are really trying to harness what the Philippines has, scrap and renewable energy. Had we chosen a different process route, whether it is making iron ore, using iron ore and hydrogen, but we don't produce hydrogen in the country, or natural gas or coal, which again, we don't have all this in the country, we will be ending up importing all this. We have to import iron ore, we have to import coal, we have to import natural gas, or making hydrogen on our own, which actually, does not make business sense because we will be ending up making our supply chain more complex by having to deal with import sources from multiple countries to make steel here. So really, we are, our vision is is about nation building, developing steel industry, and providing what the country needs and substituting those imported steel, because we know every developing country needs a lot of steel for infrastructure, for industries. So our vision is that we actually adopted green steel technologies because we are really just harnessing what the countries is, what our Philippines is endowed with, rather than trying to go green against economic sense.
Okay. So thank you very much, Mr. Pek.
Welcome.
There is something that we want to talk about that I mentioned to you that we always ask every guest who comes onto the sit-down. No, it's like, if you were to conduct your own sit-down, who would you have as your guest? The person could be living or could have passed away already, but that would be the person that you would like to guest in your own sit-down.
Okay, that's a difficult question because I don't usually do interviews.
I know.
But I think if, since you asked that question, I would really like to interview, Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew, of course, many of you know, is the first Prime Minister of Singapore. Singapore, he really led Singapore from a third world country to a first world country with no natural resources. The country was foreseen to fail in its early years of independence. How he actually, made very difficult decisions over the years to prioritize its development, and let's say led to the Singapore that we see today, which is a modern city-state, which is not only, let's say, it is interconnected to all the countries in this region. It is able to play a meaningful role in ASEAN and around the world, despite its small size. I think while many say that governing a small country is easier than a big country, but nevertheless, it's not easy to really see how he has led Singapore's development. So he would be someone I will find very interesting
I think it
to
would
pick
be a
his
great
brains.
choice. Yeah, that's a very great choice. And just so that people know, you've been adopted by the Philippines, but you're actually originally from Singapore, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm happy to be in the Philippines. Been here for more than 7 years now, and happy to be able to contribute my experience to SteelAsia, and of course, SteelAsia is trying to develop the industry for this country. Yeah.
Thank you again, Mr. Pek.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you.